is next for a guy like Inoue now? He's accomplished so much, and he's arguably the best boxer in the world, arguably put on one of the best performances of the year when he fought Stephen Coolboy Steph Fulton. So what is next for him at this point?
Well, it apparently looks like he's going to stay at 122 for a little bit, which I think was always low key the plan. Like I had heard something about this before where he's not going to move up to featherweight as quickly as we thought. And I think you could see why in this fight to some degree, right? Like I think he wants to sort of perfect his craft in this weight class first before moving up as he did at 118, as he did in prior weight classes. And not to say that he isn't the best in his weight class. He is. He showed that once again, and he showed that he is by miles. But at the same time, we expected Marlon Tapales to be out of there quickly for a reason. And now you're in a way probably wants to refine himself because he's one of these psycho competitors who's always going to try to get better and better. Now that leaves the question of who is he actually going to fight next, right? And I think that there are some interesting dance partners in this weight class. The two that probably jump out are Louis Neri and Sam Goodman. Louis Neri, very talented fighter. Sam Goodman, undefeated Australian fighter. You also have Akhmadaliev, who Marlon Tapales beat earlier this year, who Matchroom has already tweeted out. Akhmadaliev will see you soon in a way, which, I think Akhmadaliev needs to probably beat a guy or two first, given that he did lose to Marlon Tapales and beat a real guy. But at the same time, Akhmadaliev is still, as of now, or as of before this fight, was number one ranked by the WBA. Louis Neri is by the WBC, and Sam Goodman is at least one or two of the other alphabet promotions, number one ranked contenders. So I feel like it's going to be one of those guys. I feel like, you're undisputed. You're going to try to remain undisputed by fighting your mandatory. Chantel, what do you think? And then we can get some comments on this on the night tonight, because we have some people watching here with us who are up at 6 a.m. East Coast time, 3 a.m. Pacific, that we're very appreciative of. And I know a lot of people want to get back to sleep. So
Yo, Brian's so tired he thinks it's 7 o'clock where you're at. It's 4 o'clock here. Brian is
I
tired.
woke up at 6 a.m. I woke up, look, so okay, real quick. I had my 6 a.m. alarm after being up till like one something last night because Christmas. And I saw your text where you were like, Tapales is in the ring. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and I'm on the
Ran
West Coast, so when I woke up, it was like 2:30 in the morning. I was like, okay, I got a little bit of time before this fight because I figured ring walks would be around like 3 a.m., maybe 4 a.m. Like I wasn't expecting it to be at 3 a.m., like maybe 3:30. And I woke up and Marlon Tapales is walking to the ring, and I'm like, oh snap! Like
by the
I gotta.
time by the
It's
time I got my
crazy.
by the time I got my TV on, Naoya Inoue was being introduced, and I saw his name on the screen, and I was like, "Oh my god! Thank goodness I woke up in time."
Yeah, I was worried you wasn't gonna wake up because I texted you and I didn't hear anything. I'm like, this dude's asleep. But yeah, I think Louis Neri is probably the best fight to make. And yeah, they are in negotiations. We are gonna get to your comments, by the way, guys. Louis Neri, I think, is the fight to make. And it's kind of interesting because I believe Louis Neri, wasn't he knocked out by Brandon Figueroa?
Yeah, and that's something we talked about on the show.
He
Like
was. Okay, yeah, he was.
he's got a little bit more of a history. Sam Goodman is kind of proving himself, still undefeated, so there's some curiosity there. But Luis Neri he's a big puncher, tough challenge, but he did
Very
lose to
big
Brandon
puncher.
Figueroa. Yeah.
Very, 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 I think that would be a very interesting fight because it's like power against power. I still think that there's some interesting fights to make in this weight class, but I think essentially in a way he still beats them all. Like I think he just like makes his reign in this division, continues to stay at the top. But I think to me that's the most interesting fight unless he decides to move up a weight class again, and then things get really, really interesting. But I think that's the fight to make. That's the fight that fans want to see is against Louis Neri, and then maybe Akhmadaliev, because if we remember, Akhmadaliev was supposed to beat Marlon Tapales, and I said this in the preview. That was a fight where a lot of people were like, "Hey, Akhmadaliev is going to win," and Marlon Tapales surprised everybody, got the victory. It was a split decision, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, if they give us that fight, Akhmadaliev and Inoue, I think that's a fight that we all want to see because that was a fight that was brewing for such a long time. So if it's not Akhmadaliev and it's not Louis Neri, it doesn't really matter to me because I'm going to pick Inoue either way. But those would probably be the two fights. And then there's obviously speculation of him possibly moving up a weight class after he gets that done. Let's get to some comments actually, because we just got one. Brian, I want you to read this one out because this one is really interesting to me.
Makeshift 2-3. Thank you for joining the show. I'd love to see Inoue move up in weight class and fight Robesi Ramirez. Wow. It's funny. Robesi Ramirez, I believe, wasn't he the co-feature in Inoue, one of Inoue's cards in Japan? I feel like he was.
Just coming off a loss though.
Yeah, but if you're gonna move up to featherweight, I mean that makes sense. Just from the standpoint of like promotionally, Top Rank could make that happen.
I don't think it makes sense for Ramirez though. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if he wants.
Well, he'll get paid to get his ass whooped in
Yeah.
Japan. That's the thing. He'll get seriously paid. No, I don't think this is the fight that's gonna happen next. Let's get to some more comments. We've got a bunch from a bunch of people. Tyrone the Great says too much smoke at featherweight, and they're down for the smoke. I think Inoue is going to be a featherweight at some point. I think we all are resigned to that, but I think it'll probably be like a year or two down the line. I think at minimum he defends his undisputed title twice in 2024, and then maybe moves up in 2025, and that might be the last weight class of his career. We'll see how far he wants to continue to push it, but maybe it's 130, but I think 126 is sort of his destiny at some point, Chantel. And I think that's going to be no earlier than like 2025, maybe, because I think there's still a challenge or two at this weight class that he probably wants to really conquer.
I honestly think if he fights Louis Neary, which is the one that they're kind of negotiating for May, and then he fights Akhmadaliev, that he'll probably move up a weight class after that. Because yeah, maybe he'll fight a guy like Sam Goodman, maybe. But I think once he gets done in that, like once he gets done with those names, then he should move up because there's so many interesting names at 126, right? You can fight a guy like Brandon Figueroa who got knocked out by a guy like Neary. You could also fight Mark Mixayo. We haven't seen him in the ring for a really long time. Ray Vargas is an interesting name, and that's if he moves up potentially within a year or so. But I think that's the most interesting weight class because there are some really good names there, and that's the weight class that I kind of want to see him at, to be honest with you.